Hello, Father Mark. It's day 95. We're concluding the book of Judges, the last 3 chapters. And to understand these strange stories, as Father Michael Schmitz says, it's kind of rated R here at the end, but you got to understand the attitudes and beliefs of the Israelites at that time. And the most important key theological point is that, they really believed that God wanted the 12 tribes to continue existing because God promised 12 and land for them and descendants and a kingdom that would last forever and those kind of things. They knew that God had promised those things. They're trying to force it. Of course, we know that God's intention later was to have Jesus pick 12 apostles and start a spiritual people of God, and that would be fulfilled in that way. So we have an international New Israel, which is the Catholic Church, the International Catholic Universal Church. But here they are trying to continue. At the end, it talks about how they're trying to preserve the tribe of Benjamin, make sure that they all have wives, even though they were kind of hated. And they had, fought a battle against the tribe of Benjamin. So in any case, this is one of the sort of attitudes that you have. You also, to understand these 3 chapters, you're going to see a lot of kind of bad attitudes towards women, that women are mistreated, particularly this concubine, poor lady. She gets abused and gang raped and killed, and it's cut up, and it's a terrible story. But it's beautiful to see that the next book of the Bible is the book of Ruth, and it ends with a wedding. I didn't get a chance to talk about the end of the book of Ruth, but Boaz, a true Israelite, shows the true attitude of the Israelite people and of the Torah, the law of Israel toward women. So that's the true attitude. But here you've got, in the book of Judges, the 12 tribes, kind of bad men and bad decisions. And so it begins again with chapter 19. It begins talking about a certain Levite. Now that's a different Levite than the previous Levite, the guy who was a fake priest, kind of a mercenary, out for money, kind of a priest, a fake Levite. But this is just another man from the tribe of Levi. And he takes this woman to be his concubine, and they're kind of married, so her father is called his father-in-law, so they're kind of married, and they have some drinking, parties, and then he stays several more days, and then it's kind of funny how they leave. Finally, the father-in-law wants him to stay one more night, and he says, "No, I got to go now." So they leave in the middle of the night, and here they are in kind of a foreign region, and they say, well, here's a town called Jerusalem, or Jebus at that time. It was under the Jebusite. And they say, no, let's not go there because the foreigners over there. So let's go to this, turn aside in verse 12 to this other town called Gibeah. And Gibeah is a town of the tribe of Benjamin, and that's a different tribe. Okay, so now another thing you got to understand about this book of Judges is that there's a whole political kind of a motive behind the people who wrote the book of Judges, because at the time it was the early monarchy period when they had just started. You know the story how we're going to hear how Saul was the first king of Israel, when finally God gave in and let him choose a king. And first there was Saul from the tribe of Benjamin, and in fact, Gibeah was his hometown. And but he turned out to be not such a good king, and so he died, punished for his sins and for being unfaithful to God's will. And so King David became king, and he's from a different tribe, from the tribe of Judah. And so the rest of the Bible, in fact, is that King David was the legitimate king. But this whole, hot issue of whether the king should be from the tribe of Benjamin or from the tribe of Judah was a hot issue. And so the book of Judges is constantly kind of dissing or kind of downgrading the tribe of Benjamin. That under King Saul, they failed to conquer the town of Jerusalem, that the Jebusites, this stubborn little mountain town, was not able to be conquered, but finally King David became the king, and he conquered it and made it the capital and united the whole country. So King David is good. King Saul is bad. The tribe of Benjamin is bad. The tribe of Judah is good. So that's kind of what we got here. Now, this concubine is from Bethlehem of Judah, it says in chapter 1. So she's kind of from this good kind of part of this good tribe. But again, there in verse 14, it says they went to Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. It's very clear. And it says that they weren't welcomed. There was a lack of hospitality. And very similar to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah in the book of Genesis. You've got, they are first not welcomed, but finally an old man lets them into their house. And but then these perverted men from Gibeah, these Benjaminites, come and they want to have their way with the Levite. They want to, have relations with him. But instead, this old man offers his virgin daughter and this concubine. It says in verse 24, ravish them and do what you want with them, but do not do a vile thing to this man. So that kind of attitude, of course, is terrible, that that they would allow someone this group to gang rape. And it says in verse 25, they abused her all night long until morning, and then they left her on the doorstep, and the Levite comes out and finds that she's, not, he says, get up, let's get going. Doesn't seem very sympathetic, but there's no answer, so presumably she has died. She's dead there. And it doesn't seem to, but the whole point of this book is that this man is angry with the Benjaminites. So his only response is that he's angry. And he wants to get all the 12 tribes to unite in a big battle against the tribe of Benjamin, against these people from Gibeah, from the town. And so he, what he does is something that was kind of common back then. It sounds weird to us, but he did something similar to what happened later in the book of Samuel, and that is that King Saul does something similar. In 1 Samuel chapter 11, verses 6 through 8, he cuts up an ox, a bull that had been killed by enemies, and he sends it to the 12 tribes and says, hey, look what they did to me, these enemies. You need to all come help fight against them because this is what they're going to do to you. This is going to happen to you if you don't come. So it's a call to arms. And so this Levite, it says here, divided her, cut up her body into 12 pieces and sent it to all the 12 tribes. And it sounds grisly, but it's kind of an appeal to all, see what happened to my wife or my concubine. This is going to happen to you if you don't come. So it's kind of a covenant curse oath, and it's just to show everyone. So it seems terrible, but that was the purpose. That was kind of the reason for that. And it sounds like something from The Godfather or something terrible, doesn't it? But that's kind of the explanation for that. Then it does say that there's this huge battle, and they win it on the third day, which is significant because, of course, Christ conquered death and Satan on the third day with his resurrection. But then after this huge army of Benjaminites is defeated, there's only 600 left, but all of their wives had been killed. So then they start to say, well, we hate these Benjaminites, but gosh, they're one of the 12 tribes, and God promised that the 12 tribes are going to subsist, and so we need to find wives for them. And then they say, where can we find wives? And and how can we do it in a way that won't go against our oaths? There were oaths that were sworn. They had sworn, they hated the Benjaminites, so they said, we're not going to let any of our daughters marry any of the Benjaminites. So what other women can we find to be wives for these Benjaminites? And then they remembered another oath that they had made, and that was that everybody needs to come to the meeting, a planning meeting, what to do. And there was only one town that didn't come. And we had made an oath that whoever doesn't come to this meeting should be put to death. And that's verse 5 there of chapter 21. And so this town is fair game. They need to be punished anyway, so let's go up and we'll attack them and we'll kill them, but we'll take the virgins and that'll provide. But they only got 400, so then they needed 200 more for these 600 Benjaminites, and so they do something else that's weird, which is to say, well, we promised not to give our daughters to them, but maybe it's okay if they do it themselves. So they kind of said, hey, there's going to be these women who are going to be dancing in the countryside there, and you Benjaminites, you go steal them. So they kind of get around kind of a loophole, and but it's important to know that God didn't actually command or approve of what they did. Okay, the people of Israel are just trying to force the fulfillment of God's oath, to have Israel continue and 12 tribes continue, and they're trying to do it their own way, and it's not a tactic that God. These are strange solutions to the problem of having, descendants for this 12th tribe of Benjamin, but God didn't really tell them to do that. So that's why we can say that it's just another example of people doing, what they think is right in their own eyes in the whole book of Judges.